What is going on? You're listening to TAGSPodcast, aka Talk About Gay Sex Podcast, celebrating 6 years of podcasting. I am your host, Stevie, and this is episode 494. On this episode, in summertime, I wanted to celebrate some of our best interviews taken from TAGS Live. That's our Talk About Gay Sex, the live edition that occurs every Wednesday night from 9 to 10 Eastern Time. I put together 2 recent interviews taken from TAGS Live, starting with Frank Smith talking about his web series, Open to It. Really funny. You can watch it on YouTube. I'll post the link up on TAGSPodcast.com. Frank is looking to actually create the next few episodes 10 through 12, and he's looking for some fundraising. So if you like what you see and you like what you hear on this interview, feel free to help him out to get to his goal of episodes 10 through 12. Following that, I couldn't help but revisit the book that I read this summer that you should read too. You have some time. Zachary Zane talking about his book, Boy Slut. Boy, did I learn a lot in this memoir, and it's a juicy tale that you do not want to miss. All about his sexcapades and so much more. Before we get things started, I want to remind you that you can enter to win a trip to Puerto Vallarta, and we are going to be there October 29th through November 5th. I'm talking about Vacaya's 2023 resort in Mexico, all-inclusive in Puerto Vallarta, October 29th through November 5th. You can get up to $200 off if you want to join us, and we would love that. Simply click on the link on tagspodcast.com and join us, or you can enter to win your trip. And we have about 1 week left before we pick a winner. So all information is on tagspodcast.com. If you choose to join us and get up to $200 off, be sure and use our promo code TAGS, T-A-G-S, at checkout, and you'll get up to $200 off. We want to see some of you there. But first, let's get into the first interview with Frank Smith, talking about his web series, Open to It. I love that, Frank Smith, and great timing to bring on our very special guest, which is Frank Smith. Did you invite him to the stage?
I sure did. He should be accepting very soon.
There we go. I love that. Yes. Let's see if we can get him on right now.
There he is.
Here
right
he comes.
I'm clearly itching to come on. I'm like, comment.
I love it. I love it. Yes, thank you for that.
Of course. No,
go. Finish your comment. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, I just you got me hype right away, because I actually, in the show, we have like deaf casting crew who work on it, and Matt, my fiance, and I are taking American Sign Language lessons, so that just immediately pissed me off of, like, first of all, painting all disabled people with the same brush. Not all disabled people have the same needs. There's so much wrong with what he said, but like, additionally, like, why are you so ready to be like, all blank people are this? Like, what? I don't understand the curiosity, the jerky curiosity that then turns into, well, you just proved my point. Like, what is it? I promise you a disabled person has not ruined this person's life. And
Yes.
Just that level of bigotry really rubs me the wrong way. So, like, as it would any human. Anyway.
Coming on the show.
Speak on it.
I love it. Let me just introduce you. We love a good
Please, yeah, okay. Now, anyways, that guy with the faces.
Yes. We want to welcome Frank Arthur Smith to the show with his brand new web series, Open to It. We're going to get into it. So much to talk about. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes. Let me just read a little bit here. Frank Smith is a queer writer and actor originally from Boston. He most recently worked in the writer's room on Raven's Home, the sequel to the hit series That's So Raven for Disney Channel. Previously, he wrote an animated pilot with, Turnante TV, developed a live action series with Vice Studios, and rewrote a horror movie with Fangoria Sinesta, the standoff at Sparrow Creek. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Hi.
Yeah.
It's not completely updated. In addition to writing gay sex comedies, I'm also writing a cute little kids show called Ocean Explorers, which is about creatures exploring the ocean. My first episode just came out on YouTube this week. So
Yeah. Word.
Love that.
And you're so adorable in person too. I mean, I just watched the first 3 episodes of Open to It. If we were to describe it, it's basically about a couple. You play your character is Greg. Yes. Your partner's name is Cam. You're a couple. You've been together about 3 years. And all of a sudden and what I really loved about the show too is, and I was telling my sister who watched it with me, is that time is not wasted. Like, we get into the plot. And I think it's so important. You meet Princeton, really, speaking of twinks, which we were just talking about, an adorable twink.
I mean, twunk.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much. And the series is basically about the couplehood, but exploring, is it open relationships, polyamory? Why don't you tell us?
Sure. So yeah, it's they're figuring that out as they go. Because that, I think, is a very common way into it, is like, you don't necessarily, you have some rules up front, but then the rules get revised as you go along. So yeah, what I wanted to do is like have a sort of upbeat, joyous take on polyamory and open relationships, because so many of the takes I see in like gay series are often like, well, this couple's done for, and that just kind of like wasn't what I've experienced, what my friends have experienced. So yeah, I wanted to just do a different take, and sexy people can be funny too.
That's right.
Elwood's proved it, and we're here proving it now.
Well, hey, since you bring it up, I was wondering what inspired you to create this show, and is it any way, shape, or form autobiographical? Because I swear that the characters are based on me and my boyfriend, where you peek it through my window. I don't know. I am Cam, and my boyfriend is Greg, for sure.
The show is based on Kodi. That is correct. No, so I would say like there are definitely elements that I'm pulling from my own life. Like of the first 3 episodes, each was kind of like very loosely inspired by something that happened to me and or my fiance. But then from episode 4 on, it very much just took off in its own direction, because I really enjoyed the actors and what they were bringing to it, and just sort of being like, what else interesting has happened to me, kind of like wasn't how I wanted to keep going. So it really, it becomes an exploration of these people and their, sexy, dirty, but, heartfelt lives.
Yes.
Well, Teddy Alexis Rodriguez, watching us live, who's also co-hosted on this show before, said, I saw this on New Filmmakers last summer. It was so good. So you already have a fan out there. Anything adorable. Yeah.
Actually, today we found out, so New Filmmakers is this film festival. I really encourage people to go. It happens once a month. They have different themes every month. Like, they have like a disability focused month, an Asian cinema focused month. And we premiered last June for their Pride programming. We're actually going to be back this June, if you live in Los Angeles, premiering episode 4 there in Los Angeles. And we found out today we were nominated for 2. Every year they do like Best of New Filmmakers Awards. We got nominated for Best New Media Experimental, and I got nominated for Best Comedy Performance. So I'm really excited.
What? Congratulations on that. Yeah. That's major. Yeah, give us that link and we'll post this on show notes, so people where to go to watch all this stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
Great. So back to, you're in a relationship, I think you mentioned, have you had conversations about throuple, open relationships, polyamory in your own relationship? And part 2 is, do you relate to your character, Greg, at all?
Yeah, what's interesting is like, going into the series, wasn't sure if I was going to, I knew I wanted to be in it, but I wasn't sure if I was going to play Greg or Cam. And then I was like, in the first episode, let's just say, like, if you haven't seen it, the boyfriend character Cam kind of doesn't get to participate in the threesome as much as he thought he would, because he gets very, very sick. So I was like, okay, do I want to be the one on the toilet or the one who fucks? I'm playing, I got it.
So good decision. Same thing too. Yeah.
And my friend was like, are you sure? That kind of makes you the villain. I'm like, villains are more fun. Look at the
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Camp gay villain right here.
Get it, Jafar. I love it.
And this is my actually problem with the live action Disney movies is they take away the camp gay because I guess they feel that's homophobic, but then they're just not fun. They replace it with nothing. And I'm like, now we're just not memorable. So camp gay villains are okay if they're done respectfully.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I love that you don't shy away from the messier, aka shittier, if you've seen the series, parts of polyamory. Why did you find it important to show jealousy and cheating and all those types of themes in this show in polyamory?
I think because people have a lot of misconceptions around the concept, and it's one of those things that like I feel can come from just a desire to add another layer to your relationship. When before I even made the show, people would say things like, oh, so the couple's at the beginning of the end. And I was like, no. And they're like, oh, so what are they dissatisfied about in each other that they need to find someone else? And I was like, it's not that. It's like, this can be something you do together, a journey you go on together. And like the whole point is like, yeah, they experience missteps, silly, funny things happen, miscommunications happen. They need to like, you know, make up for stuff sometimes, but ultimately this is a couple that really loves each other and is going to stay together. Like it was very important to me with this show and this couple that like I'm never dangling a breakup over them. Like that's just not the angle I want to pursue. Like maybe with other couples on the show, but with the central couple, like spoiler alert, they are staying together. They are working through stuff because that's the mature loving couple they are.
It's such a great state to be in right now, to be able to write material like this, to show the really diversity of couplehood. Like, I feel like older shows had to really make it tragic or breakups or, oh my gosh, they're cheating. And it was a whole thing. And so I love that you're showing, no, I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and he was saying, no, we are open, but we will, you know, we are in this together. We're solid, and things come up, but we are not at all letting this get in the way. One of my favorite things about the show, though, and I read a comment, I think it was your Queer Tea interview, where it was really important for you to show representation, and not just from the main characters, but there's a lesbian couple in there. Why was that so important to feature in Open to It?
I definitely stand on the shoulders of a lot of queer series who have like, you know, really influenced me and impacted me. At the same time, I feel like you used to see a lot of trends, one of which, like you said, like monogamy, kids was the goal. And also like a lot of, frankly, like white gay men having white gay problems. And I just feel like there is such an experience beyond that. Some of the characters are downright obnoxious. Sometimes they're like, I have money and don't know what to do with my life. I'm like, this is not interesting.
Right.
Yeah, it's just, for me with representation, it's always like, this is the world we live in. Like mixed race gay couples exist, mixed race lesbian couples exist, disabled people exist. Like, of course, I'd love to, you know, show all of us at our best and funniest and messiest.
Yeah, absolutely. Kodi, I know you want to ask about your favorite show.
Well, speaking of diversity, I am and you highlight drag queens and so much in this show. I was obsessed because I saw RuPaul in the first episode. And
on the toilet.
I know, I was thinking about that. We have Guru like on the toilet. I'm like, I'm not trying to send a message. I love RuPaul.
I was like, yes. No, I lived. Thank you so much for that. But why was it so important? What prompted you to bring that aspect of our culture to your show? Yeah, that's my question.
Similar answer of like, first of all, I'm obsessed. Like when I've told her this, like Laganja, when writing the first few episodes of this show, I just sort of would watch the physical lip sync to like get myself into it because it's one of my favorite lip syncs of all time in the show.
Oh my God.
Now I watch Boss Bitch every time because, oh my God, this is wild.
So good. You got good taste. I like it. Go ahead.
And I think AOC like said it when she was on Drag Race, where she was like, you know, drag queens are the leaders of queer movements and the reason why we have the rights we have. And I've always felt that and seen that. And I just knew like when I was making the show, like, they have to be part of this because we're going to have a gay ass party. There's nothing like a drag queen being part of the gay ass party.
I love it. You've had a little bit of time because this premiered at Outfest, correct? And I'm just curious, what's been the response about, I mean, I love the comedy and I want to talk more about the comedy aspect and your comedy writing, but what's been the response that you've gotten for the polyamory community or people that are like the uncharted territory that we haven't really seen a whole lot of?
I've been very touched by the reception, honestly. Like, I was on a podcast called Multiamory, which is all about like love and polyamory, and people like took to watching the show right away, had lovely things to say. And especially I think I was touched because, you know, it's a show that's very like queer focused, and sometimes I think, as with most filmmakers, are like, oh, if I'm too queer, will like straight people not respond to it? But I think what's been very eye-opening and heartwarming is I've had straight people, straight men in particular, just say like, I feel like I understand polyamory much better now, having seen the show. I like root for the couple. And that was one of the very nice surprises of making this, was that like, you know, people who don't exactly look like the characters can still appreciate the story and enjoy it and learn from it.
And then how nitty gritty are you going to get in the series? Because I've watched the first 3. I know you have more coming out, on differentiating between open relationships, thruples, polyamory, or are you just not, because that could probably bog you down too, like you wouldn't write anything, I'm sure.
It has been a question on my mind sometimes of like, how granular do I want to get? And like, I think as it comes, like what I really care about is like focusing on like these characters and what's their bliss. Like, so with Greg and Cam, does it mean like being in a throuple with Princeton or someone else? Or is it just kind of like more, you know, sexy friends is what works for them? Do the women want to explore an open relationship at all? Or is that really not their vibe? Like even Cam's parents come into it at one point and they have like a sexy secret that they're really embarrassed about. So it's all about like the thesis of the show is like whether you have like a completely polyamorous relationship swinging from the rafters or like completely monogamous or anything in between, when you have like consenting adults engaging and communicating, it's all good, baby. Just have a good time.
Right.
Use lube cleanup after.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I know a couple couples in New York that are in them, and one of them has a boyfriend outside of their relationship, and this person's trans already, and the husband supports the relationship. Sometimes they even have the person over for dinner. So it's that kind of, but there's all sort of, I mean, I don't think there's one way. So it's really.
Definitely not. No. And I think like that's something that I want to ultimately do the longer the show goes on, is like to almost have a high maintenance type of structure where like we get to introduce new characters, follow them home, see them what they're like sometimes I think Greg and Cam won't even be in the episode because Papa's tired. He does a lot for this show. For just the reason that you said, that there are so many different ways to do it. Like I have a friend who's sort of like in a non-monogamous polyquad is what they call it. And like they are raising kids together. Like she is not the central couple's parents, but like she is part of the family structure and part of their life. And there are really just so many ways to do it that, again, as long as like people are having the right conversations and enjoy each other's bodies still, where's the harm?
I love it.
I love it. So great.
Did you have another question, Kodi?
Do you have another question?
I do.
Right.
I wanted to, because I was reading a little bit about, and I watched it, I believe it was episode 3, or the sex scenes that you've done with the character Princeton. And Princeton, the actor, I heard that had a little bit more experience shooting sex scenes. And I'm just wondering, what was that like, being naked and knowing that, was your partner jealous of these things, or was it really clinical, or what can you just share with us?
Yeah. So first of all, yes, Jason, he loves when I say this. He had done more sex scenes than the rest of us. And he's like, great, I'm the slut. I'm like, no, your character is. It's different. So yeah, he was great at like making us very comfortable. Like sometimes we would be like between takes and just like, sometimes you like, you know, are just holding for camera or something, so you don't like get reclothed right away. And he would just like kind of break the tension by being like, we're naked right now. And I think like for Tim and me, Tim plays my boyfriend Cam, like it helped to just kind of like make the mood very chill and relaxed. And as to my boyfriend, now fiance Matt, he was always like behind the camera as a producer, but he has also directed a few episodes of the show now. So he's very good at just being like, that doesn't look hot, fix it. You know, we have a very direct relationship.
I love that. No, that's really great. Okay, so what can you tell us about the show? How can people watch it now? When are new episodes dropping? Give us the tea.
So the first 3 episodes right now are at opentoitseries.com. The first 2 can be streamed for free. The third one costs $3.33. 3. And a portion of the proceeds go to the Trans Latina Coalition, which is a charity Laganja supports and does some wonderful work. And then episode 4 is temporarily available for the rest of the month as a part of Wicked Queer, Boston's LGBTQ+ film festival. And if you go to updates on our website, opentoitseries.com, there's a direct link to that. If you just can't wait till Pride Month to watch the rest, because that's when I think we're going to release 4 through 6 and then 7 through 9, either end of this year or like sometime next. So.
Oh, because are they already shot, those episodes?
Yes, so we've already edited 9 episodes now and are looking to film 10 through 12 before the end of the year. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, just keeping the train moving.
I love it. Thank you so much, Frank Smith. And don't forget, if you want to donate to Open to It, because they are in the process of raising funds for episodes 10 through 12, be sure and get the link on TAGSPodcast.com. Just reference episode 494. Well, now let's get into the book of the summer, Boy Slut, by author Zachary Zane. Yay, welcome to the show. We are so happy to have you, Zachary Zane, to the show. We have so many things to talk about. Let me just introduce you. Yeah, you are the writer of the brand new book called Boy Slut. You're Brooklyn-based. You're a columnist, an author, sex expert, and you focus on sexuality, lifestyle, and culture. Congratulations on your brand new book, Boy Slut. I read it. Kodi read it. It's really riveting. As I said to you at the party last week when I saw you, my sister, we were in different seats coming from Puerto Vallarta to San Francisco, and my sister kept walking past me, trying to get my attention just to check on me. And she said, "Your head was just in the book." I'm like, "Yes, it's that good. It's really that good." So I want to thank you for writing such a great memoir, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And I just want to say I did watch that video, and I do see what you mean. Within about 8 seconds, it really is a zoom up of his hairy hole. Even though it's exactly what you described, I still was shocked, even though you described it perfectly. I now understand where you were coming from with the critiques of that video. It was, more than I expected. But anyway, we can get back to the book here. I just wanted to.
No, definitely. Yeah, right. Okay. Well, we have so many things to ask you. But first off, like I said, I love the book so much. I finished it last night. It's so honest. It's real. And dare I say, it could be helpful to so many people questioning their identity, whatever stage they are at. I know there's parts in the book that you preface by saying, "Mom, Dad, please don't read this chapter." We'll discuss a little bit later. You also admit to hurting past partners you've been with. I guess the obvious question is, why did you want to write this book now and devote so much of yourself in this book?
It's interesting because I think I write about sex all the time, and I have like a digital zine, which is like nonfiction erotica. So it's really graphic, raunchy, over the top queer sex, real sex stories that have happened to me and other kinksters, and we write about it. Ooh. And I think people have always assumed that because I am sexually open, that means I'm vulnerable and open in every other capacity and every other aspect of my life. And if you like follow me on Instagram, for example, like I keep it very light and flirty and slutty and funny, but I'm not talking about my breakups. I'm not talking about my relationships with my family. I'm not talking about the times I've cried myself to sleep. So in this way, this book was a lot more vulnerable. And it's a lot more of me that I've actually shown the rest of the world, even though I've been writing personal stories for about a decade. And that's what I've been doing full time as a writer here. But for me, it was really important to write this book because I had just never, seen a book written by a bisexual man about how to overcome sexual shame. Wow. I mean, that's the truth of it. And one of the important things I talk about in the book is I actually grew up in a very sex-positive environment. I grew up in a liberal Jewish family in Los Angeles. I was the youngest of 3 boys. And, when you're the youngest, you can get away with murder at that point. There are
That's me. Don't I know it?
You too, Kodi? Oh my God.
I'm the oldest. And I was just jealous the entire time. I was like, what happened? I got beat within an inch of my life. And now he can just do whatever he wants. No, that's not fair.
That's exactly. It was not fair. But I reaped the benefits. But even growing up in the sex positive household, and I had gay uncles on both sides of my family, my mom's brother and my dad's brother. So I knew it was okay to be gay. And still, I had so much sexual shame. And that's just because, like, sexual shame or sex negativity is so pervasive. It is so insidious. You pick it up from your teachers, your peers, the articles you read, the books, media, society, everything. So unless if you live, you know, in a nudist polyamory commune away from the internet in the middle of bumblefuck nowhere, like, no, if you live in the world today, you're going to have sexual shame. And so this book is my journey about how I was able to overcome it. And for me, I had really not seen my story told, especially being a bi person. And a lot of the book is dedicated to bisexuality, but also polyamory, embracing your kinks. There are other aspects of it as well. But there are unique struggles being a bi man that we kind of don't discuss. And often, like, especially when you Google bisexuality, when I first started writing about bisexuality, you like Google it and like what comes up are like 10 things to never say to a bisexual person, or like 10 myths about bisexuality. And at least when I started writing like a decade ago, there was no bi content for bi people. It was always bi content trying to justify our existence to gay and straight people. But there was nothing about like how to date as a bi person. You know, so many women won't date you. When I first came out as bi, the gay men were just extremely condescending. Like, oh, honey, I was bi too. You'll get there. And I'm like, wow. Like, and then they try to like make out with me. I'm like, what if I said that to you? Be like, oh, honey, you think you're gay? You're actually just straight. You'd be like, that is wildly homophobic. So why is it not wildly biphobic when you say the same shit to me?
It's true.
Like, so, and the thing is, in writing this book, it came out now about 2 months ago. And I get a message every single day from someone telling me how positive this book has influenced their life in so many ways, and how they thought they were just so alone, and how these tips are helping them embrace, whether it's their bisexuality, their trans identity, their kinks, the fact that they actually want to be in an open relationship and have been afraid with their partner, or been afraid to have less sex with their partner because that's not actually what they want to be doing, and sex is not the way that they actually emotionally connect with them, and there are other ways, whatever it is. And so this book for me, it's almost like a choose your own adventure in a sense. It's like my goal for it is for you to embrace whatever your relationship is with sex. And whether that means you're taking bareback loads at a sauna every day of the week that ends in the word day, I want you to do that and embrace it and do it from a place of shamelessness, and hopefully doing it, you know, for the right reasons, for it's fun, enjoyable, and you're not, you know, craving more intimacy. Obviously, people sometimes have casual sex for not necessarily the right reasons. But if you are asexual, I want you to embrace that. If you are demisexual, meaning you only have sexual desires after you have a romantic connection or emotional connection, I want you to embrace that. If you like vanilla sex, embrace that. If you want open, whatever it is, I want you to embrace it. And hopefully I show you in this book, not only how you can embrace it, but how you can find a community of like-minded people that support you and accept you, and how you can also find partners who complement and match your specific relationship with sex.
I love that. I really, really do. And I just thought that your book was so witty and thoughtful, and it was hilarious. Thank you so much for writing this book. About the book, Boy Slut. What is exactly a boy slut? What is that versus a whore specifically?
You know what? I have a glossary in the beginning, and I have a quick, if I may,
definitions. I need them.
If I may read, you know, a quick definition of how I define boy slut here. It'll take me about a minute. Okay. You might not be thrilled by the title of this book, or by the fact that I call myself and readers boy sluts. After all, the word slut is highly gendered, and it has seldom been hurled at me or men as an insult intended to harm, belittle, or control my behavior. Men are often praised for having sex with a lot of women. They're called a player or a regular Don Juan, whereas women are deemed simply sluts. This pervasive double standard is not new, and men have always benefited from it. I know I have. Unfairly, women who are called sluts are often deemed either mentally unwell, she's got real daddy issues, or undeserving of love. I'd never marry a slut. So why do I feel like it's my right to reclaim a word that hasn't typically been used to hurl and control me? First, I choose to identify as a boy slut because it exposes the double standard of promiscuity associated with men and women, and in doing so, hopefully works to dismantle it. Second, as someone who proudly identifies as a queer faggot, I know the power of reclamation. I hope to help remove some of the stigma and shame that accompanies being a boy slut. So, what exactly is a boy slut?
It's me.
All right, it's me. You guys, it's all of us. Me too. I define as a person of any gender or sexual orientation who approaches sex without a lick of judgment or shame. Being a boy slut is not about having a high body count. It's about having the sex you want, with whomever you want, however you want, without shame. Identifying as a boy slut is to give a gigantic middle finger to society, letting everyone on this planet know that you will not be controlled or behave a certain way just because that's what's considered normal, ethical, or right.
I love that. That's
There
so
we go.
great. And this just automatically just turned into a boy slut support group, right?
Thank
Here,
you.
right? And
Yes.
so, that's fun.
Well, Zachary, I know you're a big fan of therapy, and you talk
Yes.
about it in the book. You talk about as a adolescent, I believe. Did you work with a psychologist, psychiatrist? I'm not sure. That you
When I was 8, my parents had me in therapy. I was seeing a child psychologist.
Right. And you have a funny story in there that we want people to read, but it's very funny because you were attracted to your therapist at one point and you imagined him naked. I'm just curious, you don't have to tell that whole story, but what do you like about therapy now? And I know in your book, you encourage readers, because there's a whole thing about every end of chapter that I really appreciate, that you suggest things for the reader, not tell them, but suggest maybe you should consider this. That's really, in my mind, and I learned a lot on this, we'll talk about it in a little bit, kind of self-help that you encourage people to do. But can you just focus on the therapy side of it?
Sure. Yeah. I think, and that kind of comes like, it's not a strict memoir. I kind of have it as a memoir and manifesto. And that's because, I write the sex and relationship advice column at Men's Health magazine. I have a non-monogamy column at Cosmopolitan. I do give advice for a living, so writing like a memoir was like hard. I'm like, I just kind of want to say like one thing here, and my editor was like, no, you're allowed to do that. Like it's your book, you can do whatever the fuck.
And it's never
want.
like waving the finger like you should do this or anything like that.
No,
listeners.
It's providing options. I think is what I'm trying to do, and you're allowed to pick whatever it is that you want. And a lot of the times, what I've realized in writing is people don't realize that these are valid options. Like, when I discovered bisexuality, I didn't think that was an option. I thought it was just gay or straight. When I discovered non-monogamy, open relationships, I thought you had to get married. I thought you could only be monogamous. And all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, this is an option that I can do. So I'm just trying to present other options that you might not be aware of. And if you're like, oh, this actually sounds like it might be a good idea for me, I want to try it out, that's great. If you see it and you're like, no, this is not me, this is actually harmful for me or something that could actually be detrimental to me, good. Have independent critical thought. I want you to. You don't have to agree with everything I say. Everything's not going to be for you. I'm sharing my experience. But to answer your question kind of more directly here, so talking about therapy, I mean, it's, as queer men, you know what I mean? We have so much trauma, and trauma is such like, it's almost the word right now. I don't want to say it's devoid of meaning, but everyone's kind of using that capital T trauma, lower T. I want to be like, but we've experienced a lot of hardship. We've experienced a lot of hiding, a lot of lying about who we are to others, a lot about lying who we are to ourselves. We have a lot of internalized homophobia that we might not even realize at this point. We have internalized homophobia even after we've come out as gay. We have trouble having sex with men sober. We have trouble connecting, having intimacy. We're so afraid that other people are going to reject us that we are initially kind of so mean and withholding and cold, and sometimes we kind of mask it as like, oh, we're reading them to filth, when it's like, you're just being a mean cunt for no reason. Like that's not, you know what I mean? Like there are kind of differences here. And especially one thing I realized when I moved to New York, and one thing I struggled with was initially making gay friends, not because like people wanted to be friends with me and I enjoyed it, but they were just mean. They were catty, mean gays. And I think in part because I moved here, at 25 and I was going to hot gay clubs, and it was also with other 25-year-olds. But a lot of times what I see is, people from Alabama, Mississippi, Idaho, whatever, they come from a religious conservative household. They get kicked out of their house for being gay. They move to New York, and that is a great first step, but that is not solving all your problems. You still have so much trauma you need to work on. And I just want to encourage all queer men to get into therapy, to work on that trauma. And just by the nature of moving to New York, yes, like you have removed some obstacles in your life. You're going to experience less discrimination. You're going to be around more gay people who will accept you. But still, a lot of that stuff is deep-rooted, and you really need to be able to tackle it at the source and be able to talk about it, which is why, I think every person needs to be in therapy, but specifically every queer person really needs to be in therapy.
Yeah, it's funny because we talk about our gay card. It's like we should look at our gay card and have the gay card should have therapy on there too to see. I think, Kodi.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And you talk a lot about shame in the book and how shame, if we had less shame as far as sex is considered, then we would be open to so many more things. We'd be open to experience ethical non-monogamy, for example. How do you define ethical non-monogamy, and do you subscribe to it? I feel like I know the answer to the second part of that.
No, I'm polyamorous and ethical non-monogamous. So ethical non-monogamy, and there are kind of other words for it. Some people just do consensual non-monogamy or simply say non-monogamy, is an umbrella term to describe essentially every relationship that's not monogamous, but it can take many forms, right? So you can be polyamorous, and poly means many, amory means love. So that means you're actually open to dating and having romantic relationships with multiple people. So you might have a boyfriend and a husband. You might have a boyfriend, a husband, multiple other secondary partners, whatever it is that you love and cherish, and you call them partners as well. Versus an open relationship means you have, one person who's your primary partner, your husband, your boyfriend, and then you're just open to having sexual connections with other people. So people in open relationships are not looking to have multiple boyfriends. They're not looking to have, a boyfriend, a partner, a husband. And often there are kind of rules in place, like these almost stopgap measures that try to prevent you from falling in love with other people. Right? So when you're in an open relationship, it might be like no sleepovers. Sometimes it's really frustrating when you fuck someone and like, oh, sorry, I don't do kissing on the mouth because my husband doesn't like it. I'm like, oh, for the love of God. But I am going to come inside you. But I get it.
Exactly.
I get it. Kissing can be a very emotionally intimate thing. And that's, again, kind of these things that you have in place. Sleepovers, no hooking up with exes, maybe no hooking up with the same person repeatedly, no dates, whatever it is, because the goal here is like, okay, I don't want you to fall in love with someone else, so let's try to stop it before it happens.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what open relationships are. And then there are various forms of it. There's swingers, who's a subset of this. There are various types of polyamory, but those are kind of the main kind of distinctions here.
I love it. And we have questions. We are live, so we'll get to them in just a second. We see them coming through, but I just wanted to talk about in page 17, this really struck me. You said you were talking about sex, and a little bit later you talk about fetishes. You said each time, I think I'm on the wrong chapter, but one of the things that you talk about of fetishes is that everyone should be open to fetishes. And you have a very specific fetish that I don't want to talk about because I want everyone to read.
It's a wild one. It's a fun one.
It's a wild one. If you want to talk about it, that's great.
I feel like we can tease a little bit, but it's probably more intense than yours, is what I'm going to say. But
it's probably more intense, but I think
you'd be surprised.
I have to say, when I read that, I'm in my early 50s and just recently been comfortable expressing my fetish to partners, and reading that really gave me that much more license to do that. And you say that in the book that everybody has fetishes, and I almost feel like for mental health, the more you can express that is what you're trying to say, the more healthy and happier our sex lives will be, and actually as individuals will be. Can you just talk about that and what? If you want to talk about your specific fetish, you can. But I feel like it's a deal breaker.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to.
We want people to.
I'm a little disappointed, I have to say, but no, whatever you're comfortable with.
I mean, I've been talking about it in front of live audiences. It's fine, but I think the point of this chapter was essentially to give people permission. Right? To be like, hey, one of the main things I get as a sex and relationship columnist is people essentially asking, am I normal? And they ask it in various different forms, but is it normal that I want my stepdad to piss on me? I can only come when I'm licking toes. I have to gag on dick and be blindfolded, whatever the fuck it is. And the answer, I'm like, first of all, is like, yes, you are normal, but also what does normal mean? Like there is no such thing as normal. If you're looking at prevalence, which I think is often what people are looking at when they think of normal being like, how common is this? Which is not exactly, is it normal? That is a different question, but I think that's what they mean by it. And when I say in the book, I'm like, so even if 0.01% of the population, not 1%, not zero, like like 0.01% of the population has your kink. That means 800,000 people have your kink in the world. Like there are 8 billion people in the world, and now it's easier to find other people, like through FetLife, through Recon, which is kind of the really kinky. I don't know if you're probably half of your listeners do know it, half of them don't, but it's kind of like, it's like a fetish grinder, or it's more like FetLife that's really gay. But like between Reddit, FetLife, Recon, like it's now easier to find and connect with people with your kinks than ever before. But for me, for even my specific kink, I just talk about it. And I'm always surprised by how many people actually have it, right? When I'm like, hey, I'd be interested in doing this. Are you into it? And they're like, half the time, like, nope, that's too intense for me. The other half of the time was like, oh shit, that's hot. And I'm like, all right, let's fucking do this, right?
Yes.
So I think realizing that you are normal, not only are you normal, it's not that hard to find other people into your very, very specific kink. And that the more you can talk about it, the more you can embrace it, just the less shame that you're going to be kind of experiencing, and the more happy you're going to be having sex. You're not going to be as worried about it. And you're also just going to be more sexually fulfilled because you're actually able to engage in your kink, right?
It's amazing because I have been practicing almost that mathematical equation that you just talk about. Mm-hmm. The more you talk about it, the more, I think with my kink at one point, it took almost dancers and sex workers to explore it with, to find out, because I figured they'll be into it, that I'm paying for it, to then transfer it over. Actually, I could bring it up in people I hook up with and find out that 9 times out of 10 they're into it. Yeah. And I've talked about it now. We talk about gay sex. I talk about it on my show now, and it's like I've come from 0 to 100 in just talking about it and getting what I really want sexually in bed. And it's so gratifying, satisfying, and all the above.
And most of the people, some people like, oh, that's gross. You know what I mean? Right. I sometimes do get that. But for the most part, I actually am shocked by how kind people are, where they're like, oh, no, that's too much for me. Oh, I'm not into it. And I think it's also you getting better at rejection, too. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, they're like, oh, are you into something else? I'm like, no, I was really looking for this specific thing right now. Thank you. No harm, no foul. And, they say happy hunting or whatever the fuck they sign off with. Or I say that. I think it's also rejection is kind of a muscle as well that you get better with. So you talk about that a lot in the book too. Rejection. I have a whole chapter dedicated to rejection. And that's something I wrote about because, firstly, I'm actually very good at getting rejected. That doesn't bother me that much anymore. But like me actually rejecting other people, I struggle with so much, especially because so often people get really upset with me. Especially when you call yourself a boy slut and then you don't fuck someone and they're like, oh, well, this guy fucks everyone. He's not fucking me. And they get really fucking mad or angry, or they expected something from me, or I don't know. I think I'm very clear about my intentions, usually going into a sexual relationship, whether it's casual or like I thought it was a casual sniffies hookup. We fuck for 10 minutes and then he's texting me 10 times. I'm like, hey, I'm not interested. And then he cusses me out, where I'm like, we said 8 words before we sent nudes. You came over, we fucked for 10 minutes and you left. Like, I don't know. Like, and then you texted me, you got mad that I didn't respond immediately. Like, I don't think I'm the asshole here, but I still feel like such an asshole. Yeah. I still feel like I'm like, dude, like, I'm sorry you're hurt, but like, we barely spoke. We fucked for 10 minutes. How are we so not on the same page about this?
I don't know your last name, but you want to go on a date with me?
Oh. I don't know anything about you. It's I just
Kodi, I know you want to get a question in there, though.
I do. But so the streets have been calling, and they want to know: are you equally attracted to all genders?
So it waxes and it wanes, right? You know what I mean? Like, I've noticed that, like, when I'm sleeping with a lot of men, I miss sleeping with women. When I'm sleeping with a lot of women, I miss sleeping with men. When I haven't slept with trans people or non-binary people, I miss them. I'm kind of greedy and just want everyone all the time. But in short, like, they're like, when it comes to like men and women, like, yeah, I'm pretty evenly attracted. But again, like, it's almost tough to say because there's some men I'm not attracted to, some women I'm not attracted to, some I am more. I'm in a cool place in my life right now where it's like I've really found this bisexual community, because for a while I was sleeping with more men just because it's so much fucking easier.
It really is.
It's so easy. And now I'm in a place where like it's actually it's not easier to sleep with women, but it's easier. Like I actually meet women out at these sex clubs, and they're like, they love bi guys, they love me, they hit me up. I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome too. So I'm actually sleeping with a lot of women right now. Actually, just got a vasectomy that I'm recovering from because I do not want babies, and my condom use has never been the best. That's me coming from the queer side. I feel like the gay male side from that aspect. We're not the best with condoms in the era of PrEP, or at least many of us are not. And I sometimes bring that over to the women, and I'm like, oh, I can get you pregnant. That's actually a valid concern that I need to be aware of.
Yeah.
So I actually just finally did that a week ago, and I'm finishing up recovery so I can finally start having sex again in a few days.
That's so funny that you talk about that, because we'll talk about a chapter that we won't get into, but I was so struck by Cocaine Turned Me Bisexual.
Oh, that was a fun chapter to write. And the title is just, my title.
I love the chapter. I love it.
I skipped to that one, honestly.
Love that chapter. It's so good. But, I had to skip to this question, Kodi. You'll go back to your question. Yeah. But you talk a lot about bareback sex and STIs. And I have to agree with you, and we'll let people read it. But the whole thing that you're essentially saying right now about wear a condom, and you talk about in the book about seeing your doctor and them warning you after you've got maybe one too many STIs, the same STIs, that are you going to wear a condom? And your answer is always like, no. I mean, why am I going to? You do say that if there's antibiotics that are going to be like restrained and not
if there's antibiotic resistant gonorrhea, I'll really have to that's coming, I think, at some point, and that's going to scare the shit out of me, because like that is a big deal. You'll have to be in the hospital in IVs as opposed to just getting one shot.
Mm-hmm. And I was wondering where you were going with this as I was reading it, but we got to a point where you said this is the one thing that gay and bisexual men have. It's that sexuality is the one thing, and I'm paraphrasing in general, but you said it's the one thing that we have. In other words, it's not anti-hate crime when we're on the streets. It's the one thing that we can do in our bedrooms that we own for ourselves. We can express ourselves however we want. And it was that clincher when you wrote that part, and I'll let people read exactly what you wrote, that really resonated with me, that says, yeah, this is the one thing where we can be ourselves when we're alone, privately, in our own bedrooms, doing the things that we really want. And I really want to thank you for writing that. Should you just elaborate a little bit on what you were trying to say?
I got eviscerated for that chapter. I think it was especially by women and straight people who maybe were not aware of the culture of bareback sex among gay men.
Mm-hmm.
But all I'm advocating for is you're allowed to decide the level of risk that you take in your sexual activity.
Yes.
And for me, and the thing is, in order to evaluate the level of sexual risk that you want to take, you have to have the correct information. So you have to be aware of what STIs can do to your body. You have to be aware of how they're treated. You have to know what your partner is doing, right? Like, they have to be honest about their sexual risk if they're having unprotected sex, what their statuses are, whatever it is, right?
You have to get checked more often than not, Yeah,
in order for you to make an informed decision, you have to have all the information available. But if you do have all the information available and you decide, hey, for me, it's not the end of the world if I get gonorrhea or chlamydia, I will just get treated, not have sex for a week and tell my partners. And for me, the pleasure I receive, the connection I have to sex is so much better without a condom that me getting gonorrhea once a year and getting treated. Okay, that's something I'm willing to take. That should be a choice that you are allowed to decide for yourself, obviously with the consent of your partners. I had a girlfriend recently, we broke up, we're still amiable, but the way kind of we navigated this is I'm very low on or high on risk, like stuff like this, versus she's very low on risk. And also it affects women or vulvas differently, right? It's actually gonorrhea and chlamydia is actually kind of a bitch for them versus it's less so for us. But she was like, okay, this is what we'll do because I want to have unprotected sex with you. You'll get tested. I get tested every 6 weeks anyway. But it's like, after I got tested, results came back negative. We'd have unprotected sex for a few weeks. And then I'd end up going to a gay sex party or whatever it was where I didn't wear a condom. I'd let her know. We'd wear a condom for the next few weeks until I got tested again. It came back negative. And this is what we would do. And it was a way where she felt comfortable with the level of risk that she had. we were still able to have unprotected sex. I did not feel like she was imposing. I had a girlfriend once who was like, I want you to wear condoms with everyone else, even though we are also wearing condoms. And I'm like, I don't like.
It's not going to work.
No, I don't think it's going to work for me. And there were other issues going on
Right.
as well, but that felt really limiting of my behavior in a way that I did not want. Versus her, she was like, okay, I want you to be able to do this, but I want to feel safe. Is there a compromise we could reach? And the compromise actually worked quite great, and there were no issues with it. And that was, required us, having these conversations, deciding what level of risk we're willing to take, and it worked perfectly for us.
I love that. That's a mature relationship when you can come to a compromise. You can see each other's point of view. I have another question about the difference between pansexuality and bisexuality and phrase sexuality. Can you just kind of let us know what all that is?
This is confusing a little bit, and there's still some confusion among bisexuals and pansexuals as to what it means. So that's like, if you're confused and you're like gay or straight, it's like, I get it, because bi and pan people don't agree. But in short, there was initially some confusion with bisexuality, and people started to think more recently that it was exclusionary of like trans people or non-binary people, because bi meant two. And because of that, they kind of used the word pansexual, because pan means all, being like, oh, I'm attracted to all genders. And then bisexual people were like, what? Essentially, we were like, no, we're attracted to non-binary people and trans people. Like, the reason we had bisexual, and now everyone will be like, well, bisexuality means, they have all these different meanings. Like, oh, it's attracted to genders that are your own and genders that aren't your own. And those are the bi, or they're like, you're attracted to male and females, and that's the, whatever it is. And I'm like, clearly, when this word came out, we didn't have a nuanced understanding of gender. Yeah. It was clearly not meant to be exclusionary. But then, so bi people kind of pushed back against pan people. And then they're like, okay, so we're going to change the definition slightly here. So now, kind of bisexuality often means that you're attracted to people because of their gender. You're attracted to masculinity. You're attracted to femininity. You find dicks and pussies and tits hot. Versus pansexual is you're attracted to people regardless of their gender. So you actually don't care whether they're masculine or feminine. And in that way, I'm very bisexual, because I'm turned on by all these things. I find high masculinity. I'm attracted to femininity. I'm attracted to big dicks and big tits and all that shit, right? So that is kind of a distinction that's being done now. However, there's some confusion with that, because some people identify as both bisexual and pansexual. And if you're identifying as both, when one kind of means the opposite, so like clearly there's some confusion. I think this used to be a huge debate among bi and pan people, and I think now we're finally realizing, like, we're all on the same fucking team here, you guys. Like there's some minor fucking nuances.
Labels, the Jets and the Sharks. We're all on the same team.
We're all on the same team. Like, let's relax. And then so phrase sexuality is kind of different, and this is something that I talk about in the book, and I've kind of like, I don't want to say changed my
This
tune
was
on
really interesting, because you saw a therapist that helped you figure out what phrase sexuality was, right?
And essentially, it's this idea that like you actually lose attraction to people once you have an emotional connection with them, and that it could be directly resulting because you have emotional intimacy or emotional avoidancy issues that could be causing it, but it also could just be like you're wired this way. In a way that for you, sex is not necessarily an expression of your love. It's not how you have intimacy. For you, sex is about the novelty, the excitement, the kinks, the newness. And the way that you have intimacy with your partners is through cuddling, through making out, through hearts to hearts, through watching TV together, whatever it is. It doesn't mean that like sex has to be the glue that holds your relationship together, that shows you how much you love each other. So in that way, sex doesn't have to be this thing between your primary, like this, again, that glue that holds you together with your primary partner. And I spoke about this, and I spoke about it in a fleeting way. The purpose of me talking about it was more to be like, no matter what your relationship with sex is, you can find a partner that matches. But like for this, I almost was afraid in writing about it, because I kind of get messages. I'm like, oh God, am I just enabling emotionally avoidant people who have intimacy issues? And now they're like, oh, I'm free sexual and it's fine. And I've been like accused of that. I'm like,
no.
It's like, I don't like, yes. First of all, emotionally, like, I don't know, like you might be hardwired this way, or you might have some emotional intimacy issues, but no matter what, I think it's helpful to have a label, and it's helpful for you to recognize this, to be able to share this with your partner before going into it. Because if you start dating someone and they really want sex with you every day, and that's not how you express your love, and you kind of get tired of it quickly, like you can say like, hey, this is not because I do not love you. It's not because I don't enjoy having sex with you. This is my relationship with sex. But no, I was anxious after the book came out and I got some critiques. I'm like, oh God, am I just enabling emotionally avoidant people who like gay men who can't have connected sex? And it's like, I don't know. I'm just sharing my experience here.
I think you're sharing your experience, and I really commend you for it. It opened my eyes, and I thought I've heard so much, and I really appreciate it. And I think it's just, for the most part, it's going to be an open letter to what could be, and look at your own things. We have to talk really quickly before we let you go. At the end of the book, I don't think it's giving away too much. You were dating somebody, and you say the question, like, I don't know if he's still going to be with me or not.
We're no longer dating, but we are friends.
Oh, no, he had an OnlyFans page, and
you should still follow it. Jordan Jameson. Please follow his OnlyFans page.
The other thing I want to know,
I love that I'm plugging it.
And then last year, you did a party that sounded so great called Bi Slut Party. Are you doing that party still?
Yeah, well, so it was... Oh my God, it was amazing. It was fucking amazing. And I mean, it's all in the book, so you guys will read about it. It is a lot of work, obviously, to throw a party. And I did it right before, essentially, I had to write this draft of the book. And they're like, oh, when are you doing it again? I'm like, I'm on a deadline, then I'm traveling for my book tour. Finally, now I'm back for my book tour. I'm not working on another book for at least another 6 months. I'm giving myself a break here. So yes, Bi Slut will be happening. I don't know exactly when, but some point by the end of the year. Follow me on Instagram, Zachary Zane _. I'll put that in here as well. And because I'll post about it a bunch, about when that's exactly going to be. But that is a party, and it's like for bi men and their admirers. And the reason why I did this party was just because, like, obviously they're gay sex parties, which I fucking love, and that's just gay men. Then there were queer sex parties, which was like women hooking up with women and women hooking up with men, but never men hooking up with men at these queer sex parties. And I'm like, I want an actual bisexual. I want to see a guy getting fisted by his girlfriend while sucking a dick. Like that's the shit I want to fucking.
Me too.
And that's the shit that I saw. It was like extremely fucking bisexual. There was gay sex, there was straight sex, there was queer sex, there was bi sex, there was every configuration with non-binary, trans people, every configuration humanly possible existed in a way that you actually don't see a lot of at sex parties. It really ends up being gay or straight. So I was really happy to be able to throw this party here.
Fabulous.
I love it. Well, we want to thank you, Zachary Zane, for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
The book is called Boy Slut. It's available everywhere. We both have our copies. We all have
I left my book in the other room. I can't put it on the screen.
It's okay.
It is so good. It is a perfect summer read. You got to get it. It's on Amazon. We'll list this on TAGSPodcast.com. Follow you at Zachary Zane. How else should we follow you?
I mean, that's pretty much it. Zachary Zane _ on Instagram. Again, I have this digital zine, which is also kind of doubles as my newsletter, also called Boy Slut. That's on Substack. Boy Slut, one word. If you type in 2 words, like the reason why it actually is one word is Amazon would have dinged me. Like slut would have been a curse word and it would have been buried in searches. So the way I was able to get around that was actually having Boy Slut as one word. But if you type it in as 2 words, it's really difficult to find it because Amazon will ding you because it is a curse word. But yeah, so you can subscribe to my newsletter or follow that. I also post like party news about that stuff, new things that are going on there, and it's nonfiction erotica. That's fun. My Instagram, Zachary Zane _ or ZacharyZane.com.
Truly, this is the book you want to read. You still have some time. Boy Slut is out. Get it. It is your summer read. So juicy. So many stories. You will love it. All right, well, I want to thank you for going down memory lane, a recent memory lane, for some of our favorite interviews from Tags Live. All information from this interview will be on TAGSPodcast.com, episode 494. Don't forget, you can still get up to $200 off and join us in Puerto Vallarta for the 2023 Vacaya Mexico Resort Vacation in Puerto Vallarta, October 29th through November 5th. Don't forget, you can use our promo code TAGS, TAGS at checkout. And if you want to enter to win one trip for this all-inclusive vacation. You can find that link at TAGSPodcast.com. Good luck. Don't forget, we're live this Wednesday with Tags Live, brand new episode. To get that link, go to TAGSPodcast.com, click on the link, Tags Live. And in the meantime, continue having hot, gay sex.